Obligatory. This happened about a year ago, and I still think about it every week. My name is Ethan. I was 18 at the time, just starting college in the South. I wasn't the most outgoing kid, but I was sharp, double majoring in biology and chemistry because I always thought I'd go into medicine. Or maybe teach. I liked helping people understand how the world works. At the blood drive on campus, I met Julia. She had these silver hoop earrings, this kind of disarming confidence, and she worked the sign-in table like she owned it. I went in to donate, O negative, like my mom always told me, and ended up staying around to help clean up just to keep talking to her. She made things feel easy. We'd only been dating for a month, not even long enough to be serious. But one Thursday evening, she invited me to dinner with her family. My parents are kinda old-fashioned, she said, they want to meet you. It's weird, I know. You don't have to. But I said yes. I figured it meant she liked me. Or maybe her parents were just protective. Either way, I was flattered. I'd never really been the meet the family guy before. They lived in this quiet neighborhood just outside town, typical southern suburb. Big trees, porches with rocking chairs, cracked driveways. Her dad was a mechanic. Her mom didn't work. Julia said she was a stay-at-home mom before any of them were even born. There was a kind of gentle rhythm in their home. Old clocks ticking. The smell of something sweet baking. When I got there, it was more than just her parents. Her older brother Mark was visiting from Atlanta, and her sister Chloe was there too, with a newborn cradled in one arm. Julia had never mentioned a niece. Chloe couldn't have been more than 25. Dinner was surprisingly warm. I liked her dad, Hank. He was the kind of guy who asked you about your car and offered unsolicited advice about oil changes. Her mom, Diane, was quieter, but she gave me the kind of smile that made you feel like she was trying. They asked about school, what I wanted to do. I told them about how I loved bio, the logic of it, the patterns. I brought up the blood drive and how fascinating I found blood typing. I'm O negative, I said. Apparently it's rare, but also universal for donations. Hank perked up. Same here. O-neg since the day I was born. My doc tells me I should be giving blood like it's a hobby. Me too, Julia chimed in. I think I'm O-positive though. Mark laughed. Weird. I'm AB. Pretty rare too, right? Chloe nodded. Same here. The doctors told me during my pregnancy, AB positive. I blinked. A tiny bell rang in the back of my head. Really? I asked casually. That's interesting. So your mom must be type A or B and your dad the opposite? There was a pause. Chloe tilted her head. What do you mean? Well, I said, a little slower now. You're both AB, but your dad's O, right? So I figured maybe your biological dad. Julia kicked me under the table. I looked over. She wasn't smiling anymore. What do you mean, biological dad? Mark asked, his tone no longer friendly. I felt the air thin. I just meant, Julia said her mom was married before, I said, stumbling. So I assumed maybe. Hank looked at Diane. Her face had gone ghost white. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for her glass of water. You said they were mine, Hank said. Quiet. Not angry. Just, empty. They are yours, Diane said. Don't listen to him, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Mark turned to his mother. Wait, what does he mean we couldn't be Dad's kids? I didn't mean to, I tried. Julia looked like she was about to cry. Ethan, please. Just stop. But Hank's eyes were locked on me now. Explain what you meant about blood types. I swallowed. Every word tasted like acid. It's ninth grade biology. An O blood type can't produce an AB child. If both parents are O or one's O, they can't have AB kids. It's genetically impossible. You'd get O, A, or B. But not AB. Mark stood up slowly. So you're saying? I'm saying someone's lying, I said. Or someone lied. A long time ago. That was the moment everything fell apart. Mark started pacing, muttering. Chloe clutched her baby like someone was trying to take her away. Diane was sobbing now, her shoulders heaving. Julia turned to me, her voice sharp. Why would you say that? Why would you bring that up? I didn't know, I said. I was just making conversation. Conversation, she snapped. You just blew up my entire family. You think that's just conversation? I didn't answer. I couldn't. Hank stood, slowly. Not yelling. But his silence was louder than anything else. He walked out of the room. The only sound after that was the baby crying. And the distant tick of that old wall clock, counting down whatever came next. I didn't stay long after that. Mark was shouting in the kitchen, demanding answers. Chloe had taken her baby outside to calm her. Hank hadn't come back. And Julia, she couldn't even look at me. Go, she said, quiet but firm. Please. I stood frozen in the hallway, keys in my hand but feet refusing to move. I didn't mean to. I know, she cut in. But that doesn't change what happened. I gave one last glance into the dining room. Diane was still seated, head in her hands, her shoulders shaking with sobs that had no rhythm. A woman unraveling in real time. And I'd been the match. When I stepped outside, the night air hit me like a slap. Cold, thick, too loud. Every porch light on the street felt like a spotlight. I walked to my car in silence and sat there for a while, engine off, forehead resting on the wheel. It wasn't just what I'd said. It was the look on Hank's face when he got up. That broken, distant stare like someone who had just watched the ground disappear beneath him. That man had probably spent his whole adult life believing those were his children. 20+ years of Christmas mornings, scraped knees, college tuitions. And I'd snapped it in half over a meatloaf dinner. The guilt clawed at me. But under that, deeper, was something I couldn't ignore. Julia hadn't told me the full story. She'd said her mom had been married before. That Hank was her stepdad, maybe. Or at least, that's what I assumed. But the look on everyone's face told me otherwise. They had all believed Hank was their biological father. And Julia knew that. She didn't lie to me directly, but she let me walk in blind. And now, what? I got back to my dorm around 9:30 p.m. and didn't even turn the lights on. I just sat at my desk, scrolling through blood type inheritance charts like I hadn't memorized them already. O plus O equals O. O plus A equals A or O. O plus B equals B or O. O plus AB equals impossible. AB only comes from A plus B, AB plus AB, AB plus A or B. There was no version of reality where Hank, as an O-negative man, fathered 2 AB-positive children. I opened a message window to Julia a dozen times. Typed out, "I'm sorry," at least 6. Deleted it every time. What was I even apologizing for? Telling the truth? It didn't matter. Truth without care can feel like cruelty. Around midnight, my phone lit up. Julia, they're doing paternity tests. Julia, my dad won't talk to my mom. Julia, Mark won't look at her. Julia, I don't know what to do. I stared at the messages for a full minute before typing back. I didn't mean for this. I swear. Julia, I know. Julia, but you still did it. She didn't message again that night. The next few days passed in a weird kind of haze. I went to class. I studied. I volunteered again at the bio lab just to stay busy. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw Hank standing up from that table. The stiffness in his shoulders. The way Diane had reached for his arm like that might keep him from leaving. Julia didn't reach out again until Saturday. Julia, we got the test results. Me, do you want to talk? It took her 2 hours to respond. Julia, they're not his kids. Julia, not Chloe. Not Mark. Not me either. That last line hit harder than it should have. Somewhere deep down, I think I had hoped she was the exception. That maybe, somehow, this chaos had skipped over her. That at least Hank would still be her dad. But biology doesn't grant mercy. Me, I'm so sorry. Truly. Julia, my parents are divorcing. My brother won't speak to my mom. My sister's talking about therapy. Julia, and me? I don't know who the hell I am anymore. Me, you're still you. None of that's changed. Julia, it's all changed, Ethan. She was right. Because even though I hadn't meant to, I'd ripped the curtain down. And now that the truth was out, nothing would ever be the same again, not for Julia, not for her family. And not for me either. Julia called me that Sunday. Not a text. Not a message. A real call. I almost didn't answer, because I didn't know what version of her I was about to hear on the other end. The angry one from dinner? The wounded one from her messages? Or something worse, something hollow. Hey, I said. I need you to come over, she said. Her voice was soft. Like a whisper someone forgot to finish. To your house? No. My aunt's. We've been staying here since Friday. Mom's not, she's not doing well. My gut twisted. What do you mean? She hasn't eaten. Barely talks. I think she's having some kind of breakdown. Mark's still furious. Chloe won't let Mom near the baby. And your dad? She paused. He's staying at a hotel. Said he needs time. Said he doesn't want to see her unless a lawyer is present. I sat down on my bed, the weight of it all dragging me with it. Are you okay? No, she said. But I don't know who to talk to. Everyone else is too deep in it. And, you're the only one who's not pretending anymore. I agreed to come. When I arrived at the aunt's house, a small brick place on a quiet street, Julia met me at the door. She looked like she hadn't slept. Her hair was in a messy bun, her hoodie was her dad's from what looked like 20 years ago, and her face was pale and puffy. I tried to hug her, but she stepped back. Not yet, she said. Inside, the living room was silent. The TV was on, but muted. Diane sat in the recliner, staring straight ahead, unmoving. There was a half-empty glass of water on the side table and a Bible resting on her lap, untouched. Julia led me to the kitchen. She doesn't even respond when I talk to her, she said. She just sits there. Sometimes she cries. But mostly she just stares. Has she seen a doctor? My aunt wants to take her, but Mom keeps saying no. Says she deserves to feel it. Whatever it is. I sat at the table, unsure of what to say. I talked to Hank yesterday, Julia said. He wants DNA tests for the men he thinks might be our real fathers. All of you? Yeah. Chloe's already reached out to someone she thinks her mom was seeing before Dad. Mark, too. Me? I have no idea. She won't even say who it might have been. She still won't tell you? She says it was a mistake. That it didn't matter. But that's not an answer. That's a deflection. I could feel the storm building behind her eyes. She was barely keeping it together. Then she looked at me, and her voice changed. Ethan, why did you even ask that question? That night at dinner? I blinked. What do you mean? I mean, why? Why ask about blood types? Why even go there? It wasn't accusatory, exactly. But it wasn't neutral either. I don't know, I said honestly. It was biology. It was casual. I thought you'd mentioned your mom had been married before. I assumed the others were from a different father. Julia crossed her arms. I never said that. I just said she'd been married before. You didn't correct me either. She sighed. I didn't think I had to. I looked at her. Did you know? No, she said immediately. Too quickly. You had no idea your siblings were biologically impossible based on your dad's blood type? She hesitated. Julia. I suspected, she said finally. Okay. Not because of blood types. But because of other things. Old whispers. Things Chloe once said. The way Dad used to look at Mark sometimes, like he wanted to see something that wasn't there. Then why didn't you say anything? Because I didn't want it to be true, she snapped. I thought, if no one asked, then maybe we'd never have to know. But you did know. You just didn't want it confirmed. Would you? She shot back. If someone handed you a thread that could unravel your entire life, would you pull it? I didn't know that thread existed. She looked away, her jaw tight. I just wish you hadn't asked, she whispered. Even if I know it's not your fault. I stood up, unsure what I was supposed to do with that. Was she blaming me? Or just venting? I couldn't tell anymore. I'm sorry, I said. I really am. She nodded slowly. We both stood in the kitchen, not touching, not moving. Just existing on opposite sides of something too big to name. I should go, I said. She didn't stop me. As I walked past the living room, Diane was still in the same spot. Her lips were moving slightly, like she was praying. But her eyes were glassy, unfocused. Not really there. I stepped outside into the sunlight. It should have felt warm. Instead, it felt like standing in the aftershock of something that hadn't finished falling yet. And somewhere deep inside, I started to wonder. If I had the power to expose the truth, did that also make me responsible for what came after? Julia didn't reach out again for over a week. At first, I kept checking my phone, half expecting a message that never came. Then I stopped checking. The silence had a rhythm to it. Predictable. Easier to brace for than whatever words she might send. I told myself we needed space. That this wasn't the kind of thing anyone could process overnight. But somewhere between my morning lectures and the nights I spent staring at the ceiling, I started wondering if maybe we weren't just on pause. Maybe we were over. Because how do you go back to dating someone after you've watched their entire family collapse in front of you? More than that, how do you go back after realizing they may have always known it was built on a lie? My friends asked why I'd been so quiet. Why I bailed on Friday pizza night. Why I hadn't brought Julia around lately. I lied. Said she was busy. Said we were taking it slow. Truth was, I didn't know what we were anymore. Then, the following Sunday, she showed up at my dorm. No warning. No text. Just a knock. I opened the door and there she was, makeup done, tight jeans, the kind of top she used to wear when we went out. Hair curled like it had been a normal morning. But her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Can I come in?" she asked. I stepped aside. She looked around the room like she was trying to remember if anything had changed. I hadn't tidied up. There were class notes and half-eaten crackers on my desk. I didn't care. "You're mad at me," she said, turning back toward me. "I'm confused," I replied. Still trying to understand what any of this meant. She sighed and sat down on my bed like she belonged there. I stayed standing. My mom's not doing well, she said. She finally agreed to see someone, but she barely speaks. She told Chloe she wakes up every morning expecting to see my dad drinking coffee in the kitchen. And when she doesn't, it feels like she's dreaming someone else's life. I'm sorry. She deserves it, I know, Julia added quickly. But I don't know. It still hurts. I didn't say anything. She looked at me. You haven't asked how I'm doing. Do you want me to? No, she said, eyes narrowing. I want you to stop looking at me like I'm the one who ruined everything. I blinked. I never said you did. You didn't have to, she snapped. You've been quiet. Distant. Like I'm just collateral damage in your own little moral crusade. Is that what you think this is? I asked. A crusade? I think you liked being the guy who told the truth. Like you were proud of it. Proud? I repeated. Julia, I've spent every day since that dinner wondering if I should have kept my mouth shut. Wondering if I ruined lives by accident. If I ruined yours. You think I'm proud of that? She looked away, jaw clenched. Do you want to know why I asked that question? I said, stepping forward. Because I assumed your family knew. Because you told me your mom was married before. You let me believe those kids had a different father. I didn't say that. You didn't correct it either. I didn't think it mattered, she said. That's the problem, I said. You knew. Maybe not for sure. But enough to be scared. Enough to avoid it. She stood up suddenly. So what, now you're judging me? No, I said. I'm realizing I never knew you. Her face fell for just a second. But then she smiled. Cold. Sharp. You know, you're not as noble as you think you are. Excuse me? You wanted to impress my dad, she said. That's why you brought up the blood drive. The science talk. You were showing off. I was making conversation. No. You were performing, she said. And when the stage caught fire, you played the victim. The words hit like slaps. Not because they were true, but because some twisted part of me had thought maybe she still saw me the same way. But that girl was gone. Maybe she never existed at all. I opened the door. I think you should go, I said quietly. Julia stared at me. Then gave a short, bitter laugh. You'll regret this, she said. And then she walked out. Not a tear. Not a glance back. Just the sound of her boots echoing down the hall. I sat on the edge of my bed for a long time after. The truth? I didn't feel relief. I didn't feel triumph. I felt empty. Like I'd finally closed a door, only to find myself in another room just as dark. But at least now, the silence was mine. I had no idea what Julia would do next, whether she'd spin her own story or let it die quietly. Whether her family would ever speak again. Whether Hank would forgive anyone. But I knew one thing with certainty. Whatever love had existed between us was gone. Not burned. Not buried. Just vanished. And there was no science in the world that could bring it back. A month passed. Midterms came and went. Spring bled into the edges of everything, warmer days, students stretched out on campus lawns like sunbathers waking from hibernation. It should have felt lighter, like the past was finally slipping out of my shadow. But it didn't. I still saw her sometimes. Julia. Not in person, we hadn't spoken since she left my room, but in flashes. A girl walking past the science building in a red hoodie. A laugh in the dining hall that sounded too much like hers. I'd catch myself looking up, heart thudding in anticipation, only to realize it wasn't her. And sometimes, I wasn't even sure if I wanted it to be. She unfollowed me on social media a few weeks after our fight. Deleted the photos of us. Unfriended my friends. Cut through the digital threads with the same precision she'd used to stitch herself into my life. I didn't reach out. I didn't ask why. I already knew. We were ghosts to each other now. And yet, the past wasn't done with me. It was a Tuesday afternoon, a little after 3. I was sitting in the campus library, half asleep in a chair near the windows, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Hey Ethan. It's Mark. Julia's brother. I sat up. The message was so unexpected I read it twice, like maybe I'd imagined it. I hadn't even seen Mark since that night, since I watched his world collapse over dinner and I became the guy who detonated it. Can we talk? I stared at the message for a minute, thumb hovering over the keyboard. Sure. Is everything okay? Not really. Want to meet somewhere? You free now? There's a diner off Harper Avenue. Quiet place. 15 minutes later, I was sliding into a booth across from Mark. He looked older somehow. Not in years, but in weight. Like life had been pressing down harder than it should have. His beard had grown out, scruffy and uneven. His sweatshirt had a stain near the collar. Hey, I said cautiously. He nodded. Thanks for coming. We sat in awkward silence for a bit. The waitress brought coffee. Neither of us touched it. I know it's weird, he said eventually. Me texting you out of nowhere. No, it's fine. Just, surprised. He exhaled, rubbed his jaw. I needed to talk to someone who didn't grow up in that house. I nodded. You've spoken to Julia? Not since she moved out. I raised an eyebrow. Yeah, he said. She's staying with a friend. Cut off Mom. Blocked Chloe. She won't even take Dad's calls. She told me she didn't want to be part of the drama anymore. Mark shook his head. She was never outside it. She just got better at pretending it didn't touch her. I sipped my coffee. So why me? Mark looked me straight in the eye. Because you asked the question. The one none of us ever did. I swallowed. And because, he added, you're the only one who told the truth. I didn't know what to say to that. So I waited. Mark pulled a folded paper from his jacket pocket and laid it on the table. I recognized it immediately. The paternity test. I didn't reach for it. All 3 of us, he said. Different fathers. Dad confirmed it. Said Mom admitted it when he finally cornered her. Does he still live around here? He's moving, Mark said. Taking a job in Tennessee. Says he needs a new start. Said he's still our dad, but, you could hear it in his voice. He's tired. I nodded slowly. I'm sorry. I should have asked sooner, Mark said. We all should have. But you grow up believing a version of your family, and after a while, it becomes too scary to look under the surface. Truths like that, I said. It's not always a gift. No, he agreed. Sometimes it's a wrecking ball. We sat quietly for a while, the low hum of the diner filling in the cracks. A couple sat at the counter, laughing softly over milkshakes. An old man read a newspaper alone. Mark took another sip of his coffee, then leaned back. You know what's weird? What? I still feel like Hank's my dad. Even though he's not. Even though the paper says different. He is your dad, I said. The paper only tells you about blood. Not time. Not effort. Not love. Mark nodded. Yeah. That's what Chloe said, too. Said Hank was the one who taught her how to tie her shoes. Who read to her when she was sick. Not the guy whose DNA she carries. He folded the paper and tucked it away. She's trying therapy, he added. Trying to work through the anger. That's good. Mom's not. I looked up. She still blames everyone but herself. Says the past should stay buried. That we're cruel for digging it up. That she never meant to hurt us. That doesn't mean she didn't. He smiled bitterly. Yeah. That's what I told her. He finished his coffee. Set the mug down gently. I'm not asking for anything, Ethan, he said. I just wanted to say thanks. For being the first honest person to sit at our table. I didn't expect that. Not from Mark. Not from anyone in that family. But something in my chest eased. You deserved better, I said quietly. He shrugged. We all did. But now at least we know. And knowing hurts. But it also frees you. He stood to leave. Take care of yourself, man. You too. And then he was gone. I sat in the booth for a long time, watching the space where he'd been. Thinking about Julia. About Diane. About the cracks beneath every family photo on that dining room wall. And for the first time in a long while, I felt something like peace. Because Mark was right. Truth may break things. But it also lets you decide what to build next. After meeting with Mark, something in me changed. It wasn't like flipping a switch, it was slower than that. Like thawing. Like realizing the pain hadn't disappeared, but it didn't control me anymore. I could wake up, brush my teeth, walk to class without the tension clawing at the back of my neck. I'd stopped checking Julia's Instagram. Stopped wondering if she'd message me. I let the silence become the new normal. And honestly, it felt like relief. I started talking to other people again. Grabbed coffee with Rachel from my lab group. Helped Joe and Simon move a couch into their new apartment. Laughed at something dumb during a movie night and didn't feel guilty about it. Life didn't feel fixed. But it felt mine again. Until Julia came back. It was a Saturday, late afternoon. I just finished a workout and was walking back from the gym, earbuds in, sweaty and sore and thinking about what kind of takeout I could justify. When I saw her. She was leaning against the brick wall outside my dorm. I stopped walking. She looked the same. Different, but the same. Still wearing clothes that fit like she was telling the world not to underestimate her. Still had that half smirk she used when she didn't want to show weakness. But her eyes, they were tired. Not the kind of tired sleep fixes. Hey, she said. I pulled out one earbud, cautiously. Hey. Can we talk? I hesitated. Every instinct said no. Every memory said no. But I nodded anyway. We sat on a bench near the side lot. Students wandered in and out, voices low, the smell of someone grilling nearby. Julia sat with her hands folded in her lap like she was afraid she might wring them into pieces. I heard you met with Mark, she said. I nodded. He reached out. He told me, she said. Said it went well. I think he was surprised. He's figuring things out, I said. Trying to move forward. I envy that, she said quietly. I didn't answer. She looked over at me. I've been angry at you. I know. Not for what you said. But because you said it in front of them. Because you dragged the curtain down when I wasn't ready. You think I was? No, she admitted. That's the worst part. I know you didn't mean to hurt anyone. She paused. But I still hated you for a while. I nodded, slowly. That makes two of us. She flinched at that. I didn't take it back. I told myself I'd come here and say I forgive you, she said. That I wanted to make peace. But you don't. I don't know if I can, she whispered. Everything's fractured. My mom barely speaks to anyone. My dad won't come near me. Chloe blocked me last week. I'm sorry. She looked up at the sky. You know what's messed up? What? I still don't know who my biological father is. I looked at her, surprised. She never told me. Not once. Said she couldn't remember. Said it wasn't important. She laughed bitterly. Isn't that something? She shattered 3 lives, and then called the details unimportant. Maybe she really doesn't know. Julia shook her head. She knows. She just doesn't want me to. I didn't know what to say to that. So I stayed quiet. Then she turned to me, eyes searching. Did you ever really love me? That caught me off guard. I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe. I think I was starting to. She nodded, as if she expected it. I did, she said. Love you. Before everything. Before you saw me as the guy who ruined your family. You didn't ruin it, she said. You just exposed the cracks. We sat in silence again. The wind picked up slightly, carrying the sound of distant laughter. Somewhere nearby, a door slammed. She looked at me one more time, then said, I don't expect anything. I just wanted to say. I wish it had been different. I do too. She stood up, brushing her hands on her jeans. Well. That's that, I guess. I stood, but didn't follow her. She turned, took a step, then paused. Oh, she said. You should know, Chloe's ex. The one from a few years ago? She reached out to him. Got a test. And? He's not the father. I stared at her. Julia gave a tired smile. Diane might not even know who any of our dads are. Isn't that wild? No, I said. It's sad. She nodded once, then walked away. I didn't watch her go. I just sat back down, letting the wind move around me. I felt nothing. And that was new. No ache. No panic. No what-ifs. Just stillness. I stayed there long after she was gone, thinking not about the girl I'd lost, but about the man I was becoming. And maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the ending I thought it was. Maybe it was the beginning. 2 weeks passed after Julia's visit. Classes picked up. I got a part-time tutoring gig with the bio department, which felt fitting, ironic, and a little like therapy. Explaining genetics to freshman students, the thing that once detonated someone else's life, gave me a strange sense of control. Predictability. I knew how alleles worked. I knew what outcomes were possible. Unlike people, chromosomes never lied. Most days, I didn't think about her. When I did, it was quieter now. Like remembering a scar instead of the wound. She was still there, part of my story, but no longer dictating its direction. One quiet Thursday afternoon, I came back to my dorm after class and found an envelope taped to my door. No name. No return address. Just my room number scribbled in blue ink. I stood there for a second, heart oddly still. I thought of Julia at first, but the handwriting didn't look like hers. It was too loose. Masculine. Rushed. I peeled it off, stepped inside, and opened it at my desk. There was a single sheet of lined notebook paper. Folded twice. It read. Ethan. I don't know if you want to hear from me. But I've been thinking about it every day, and I need to say something. My name is Hank. I was Julia's dad. Or at least, I thought I was. I stopped reading. Just for a second. My stomach twisted, but I kept going. When you came to dinner that night, I liked you. You were sharp. Polite. Real. Diane always said Julia had a habit of choosing boys who didn't stick. I thought maybe you were different. You were. And then you opened your mouth about blood types, and my whole life cracked like a windshield under a hammer. I didn't say anything at first. I wanted to believe it was a mistake. That maybe there was some mix-up. But I'm not an idiot. I've changed enough oil and fixed enough engines to know when something doesn't add up. I took those tests because of you. I asked the questions I should have asked 20 years ago. And every answer hurt. But every one of them also set me free. Free from a lie I didn't even know I was living in. So this is what I need you to know: I don't blame you. In fact, I thank you. You gave me something I didn't even know I needed, the truth. It came late. It came ugly. But it came. And now, I get to decide what I want to do with what's left. I'm moving out of state. Going to live near my brother. Maybe take up fishing again. It's strange, not having a wife, not having kids, at least, not the kind I thought I had. But it's also kind of peaceful. I hope you're well. And I hope you keep asking hard questions. Someone has to. Hank. I read it twice. Then again. Then I just sat there, holding the letter in my hands like it was something fragile. Sacred. Like it might dissolve if I blinked too hard. I hadn't expected that. I'd expected silence. Resentment. Maybe a second-hand insult through Julia. I never expected a thank you. And yet, of all the people in that family, Hank had always felt the most solid. He didn't yell. He didn't panic. He watched, thought, and then moved, like a man who fixed things for a living and had learned never to touch hot metal too fast. He was the one I worried about the most after that dinner. The one I imagined walking out the front door and never looking back. And I was right. But he didn't do it out of rage. He did it out of mercy, for himself. I folded the letter gently and slid it into the top drawer of my desk. And for the first time since that night, I allowed myself to feel proud. Not for breaking a family. But for refusing to ignore the truth when it stared me in the face. Later that evening, I called my mom. She picked up on the second ring. Hey, sweetheart. Hey, Mom. You busy? Nope. Just folding laundry. What's up? I hesitated. Can I ask you something? Of course. What blood type do you and Dad have? There was a pause. Well, I'm a positive, and I think your dad's O positive. Why? No reason, I said, smiling slightly. Just thinking about class stuff. She laughed. Always the science kid. Even when you were 5 and took apart the microwave. We talked for another 15 minutes. About nothing and everything. She told me about the dog chewing her favorite sandal. About how Dad nearly fell off a ladder cleaning the gutters. About how she missed me. And as I hung up, I realized something. You don't always get to choose where you come from. But sometimes, you get to choose what you keep. And Hank? He may have lost the titles. But he hadn't lost his dignity. He chose truth. So did I. And I was starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, that made all the difference. I didn't plan on visiting the blood drive again. It was just another Thursday. Cloudless sky, warm breeze, the kind of day you walk through without noticing because your mind is elsewhere. I just left my chemistry lab, fingers still stained faintly blue from glove dye, when I saw the folding tables being set up outside the student union. Same red canopy. Same hand-drawn signs taped to plastic coolers. Same donation forms fluttering in the wind like little paper ghosts. And I don't know what pulled me toward it. Maybe it was habit. Maybe it was the part of me that still wanted to understand things through clean labels and test results. But I found myself standing there again, name on the clipboard, sleeve rolled up. The nurse smiled politely as she prepped the needle. "Oh, negative," she said, scanning my form. "Universal donor. You're a rare one." I gave a weak smile. "Yeah. So I've heard." As she taped the tube down and the blood started to flow, I let my eyes wander. Just across from me, a girl I recognized from orientation flinched as her nurse swabbed her arm. I gave her a small nod of solidarity. She grinned sheepishly. "I always pass out," she said. "But they guilt me into it every semester." "Guilt's a powerful motivator," I replied. She chuckled. "So is not wanting to ruin your GPA by skipping lab. What's your major?" "Biochem." She raised her eyebrows. "Ah, so you're one of the smart ones." "Depends who you ask." We chatted until the timer beeped. I stood slowly, thanked the nurse, and took my juice box like a kid on a school field trip. Then I sat down on the concrete bench nearby and just breathed. It felt strange, sitting there without Julia. She had been here the first time. She was the reason I'd stayed longer. The reason I'd asked the question. The reason everything began unraveling. But she was gone now. Really gone. And all I had left was the story. The moment. The truth. I thought that would make me bitter. I thought I'd always flinch when someone mentioned family. But lately, I didn't. Because what came after Julia surprised me. I started spending time with Rachel, the girl from Bio Lab. At first, it was just study sessions. Notes and flashcards and late-night pizza. But then she started texting me just to talk. We went for a walk once after a rainstorm, shoes muddy, laughing about nothing. She told me her dad used to make her label the pantry cans alphabetically. I told her mine made me clean spark plugs when I got in trouble. It wasn't a romance. Not yet. But it felt honest. Real. Like there was no lie waiting underneath. And for now, that was enough. Later that week, I got a call from an unknown number again. I almost didn't answer. But something about it felt different. "Hello? Ethan?" "Yeah. This is Chloe." My heart skipped. "I know this is out of the blue," she said quickly. "I wasn't sure if I should call. But I got your number from Mark." "No, it's okay," I said. "I'm glad you did." There was a pause. Then she exhaled. "I wanted to say thank you." "For what?" "For saying something. For asking the question. For not pretending." I didn't know what to say to that. I'd braced for anger, defensiveness. But not gratitude. Chloe continued, "At first, I hated you. I thought you'd destroyed us. But now I realize we were already broken. We just didn't want to see it. I'm sorry it happened that way." "I'm not," she said. "Not anymore." She told me her baby was crawling now. That she'd started therapy. That she still didn't know who her biological father was, and maybe never would, but she'd stopped obsessing about it. "I've got a daughter to raise," she said. "And she's going to know who she is, no matter what's in her blood." I smiled at that. "She's lucky to have you." She laughed softly. "Maybe. Or maybe we're both just figuring it out one step at a time." Before she hung up, she said, "I hope you're doing okay, Ethan." "I am," I said, and realized for the first time in months that it was actually true. That weekend, I cleaned out my desk. Tossed old notes. Stale granola bars. Faded flyers. And at the bottom drawer, I found Hank's letter again. I read it one more time, slowly. Then I folded it back, placed it gently into a small envelope, and sealed it. I didn't throw it away. Some truths deserve to be kept, not for pain, but for perspective. I don't know where Julia ended up. She hasn't posted in a while. Someone said she transferred schools. I didn't check. It didn't matter. She was a chapter. Not the whole book. And the boy I was when I met her, the one who believed families were always what they claimed to be, he's not here anymore. What's left is someone stronger. Someone careful, but still open. Someone who knows that the blood in your veins isn't nearly as important as the people who choose to stay. And the people you choose back. Graduation was still 2 years off, but I felt older than the rest of my class. It wasn't the credits or the coursework. It was the weight. The kind of weight you only gain when something shatters in your hands and you're left with the pieces. When you realize the world's cleaner when it's a lie, but more livable when it's not. I carried that weight into everything. Not in a bitter way. Just more aware. I noticed when people avoided hard questions. When families clung to convenience. When relationships leaned on unspoken rules instead of shared truth. Julia had taught me that. Or rather, the collapse around Julia had taught me. One night in late April, I sat on the grass outside the bio building with Rachel. She was wearing a hoodie 3 sizes too big, holding a slice of greasy pizza, legs stretched out in front of her. We weren't dating, not officially. But we spent more time together than not. And when I looked at her, I didn't feel fear. I felt presence. You ever think about who you were before everything changed? She asked me that night, chewing thoughtfully. I smiled. You mean like before I detonated a Southern family dynasty with 9th grade biology? She grinned. Yeah. Exactly that. I took a breath, staring up at the stars. I think about him a lot. He was quieter. Simpler. Trusted too easily. Didn't know that the truth could hurt more than lies sometimes. You miss him? No, I said. Not really. I meant it. That boy, the one who showed up to dinner in a tucked-in shirt and thought the worst thing he could do was spill sweet tea, he was gone. And in his place was someone who'd watched people fall apart. Who'd watched truth burn through drywall and wedding vows. And somehow still believed in honesty. I think the new guy's better, she said, nudging me with her knee. I smiled. He's still figuring it out. Aren't we all? A beat passed. Then she said, you ever think about your own family? Like, if it happened to you? I did, I admitted. Right after it all went down, I started second-guessing everything. My blood type, my parents, childhood memories. I even called my mom out of nowhere and asked about her blood. What did she say? She said I was overthinking. That I'd always been hers. And that if I was really worried, I could ask for the baby book where she taped my hospital bracelet to the page. Rachel laughed. That's such a mom thing. Yeah. It helped though. I looked at her. Truth is, I still think about them sometimes. Not Julia. But her family. Hank. Chloe. Even Diane. Rachel nodded. That's okay. Sometimes I wonder if I was supposed to keep quiet. If it was even my place. It was your place the second they let you into their home. I didn't respond. But something in me eased. She leaned her head on my shoulder, and we watched the night stretch out in front of us. That summer, I went home for 3 weeks. First time in months. My parents were exactly the same, Mom still labeling everything in the pantry, Dad still insisting I check the oil even though I didn't drive my car once that week. But something about being there made me reflect differently. Like now that I'd seen how fragile a family could be, I noticed the cracks in my own. Little ones. The way my dad flinched when he thought he'd lost his temper. The way my mom double-checked the lock twice before bed. The way they still held hands at the grocery store, but only after checking no one was looking. Nothing dramatic. Just quiet, human things. But real. One night at dinner, I told them everything. Not just about Julia, but the whole story. The blood types. The dinner. The tests. The letter from Hank. The guilt. The fallout. They listened. Both of them. My dad said, "That's heavy." My mom said, "You did the right thing." We sat in silence for a moment. Then Dad added, "You know what I remember most from being your age? Thinking adults had it all figured out. Now I know we're all just guessing." I laughed. Sounds about right. Fall semester came quickly. I moved into a new apartment off campus. Clean space. Blank walls. My own quiet. Rachel helped me hang curtains one afternoon and left behind a ceramic mug that said, "DNA is not destiny." I kept it. One rainy Sunday, I found myself writing. Not for a class. Not even for anyone to read. Just for me. I wrote about the night at Julia's house. About Diane's pale face. About Hank's silence. About the scream Chloe let out when the math finally clicked. About Mark pacing. About Julia kicking me under the table. About how it all unraveled. But more than that, I wrote about the days that came after. About the stillness. The regret. The forgiveness. I wrote until my fingers ached. And when I was done, I closed the laptop. It wasn't for revenge. Or pity. Or absolution. It was just a way of saying, I was there. This happened. I'm still standing. Sometimes, when people talk about betrayal, they make it sound like a sharp, clean break. But it's not. It's slow. It leaks into your mornings. Your confidence. Your laughter. But healing is slow too. And more honest. You stop flinching when someone brings up family. You stop wondering if you were the problem. You stop needing answers from people who were never brave enough to give them. You become your own proof. Your own name. Your own truth. And for me? That started with a question about blood. And ended with knowing exactly who I am, not because of who raised me, or who I loved, or who lied. But because of who I chose to be after everything fell apart. And if that's not worth everything, I don't know what is.